Hi everyone, welcome back to the Poker Vlog. I am currently reporting from the Gardens Casino in Los Angeles, California. A couple weekends ago, I was in Omaha, Nebraska, and this footage is of me rambling for about 4 minutes of a hand that I played. It was the only interesting hand that I played, and I couldn't record at the casino that I played at. But long story short, I made a big hero call, and I'm just going to put the action here. You can pause, take a look at what happened, and this was the opponent's hand. So I made a big call. It worked out. I'm glad it worked out. And I rambled for about 4 to 5 minutes about why I made the decision I made. And ultimately, I'm deciding not to include it in this video because it's just too long. So I am here about to jump into the 2-3 game. And the max buy-in is $200, which is not ideal. In most cases, I'd like to play at least 100 big blinds deep, but I wanted to try something new and try the game out here at Hawaiian Gardens. So buying in for 200, and we'll see how it goes. Wish me luck.
All right, in this first hand, we look down at 8-7 of hearts on the button. And if you'll notice, I am listening to you all in the comment section, and I added an effective stack graphic in the bottom left-hand corner. What this means is that I'm keeping track of the smallest stack in each hand that we're showing here. The purpose of doing this is to show the relationship between the size of the pot and the size of the smallest stack. I could have, let's say, $1 million in front of me, but that wouldn't really matter if my opponent in the hand only had $200 to play with, which is why we most often only care about the smallest stack in each hand. So back to this hand, we're in the button. The under the gun player raises to $6. He gets one caller. And if you watched last vlog, you'll remember that I said that my goal for the next time I played was to be more aggressive. So I took the more aggressive route and raised to $25. The under the gun player makes the call, and the middle position player also makes the call. The flop comes king deuce deuce with 2 spades, and the under the gun player leads out for $35. Just to give you some context, this under the gun player was the classic armchair quarterback at the table. I think you know the type, telling everyone why they made a bad play and what they should have done instead. So to say the least, he was getting on my nerves a little bit, which sort of explains the action here. So he puts in the raise to $35, and the middle position player folds. Really, my only two options are to fold or raise, and he's really only representing a complete bluff, a weak king, trying to set a cheap price, or he's trying to take the lead of this hand with a deuce. The last option is definitely scary, but I have all the strongest hands here, like ace, king, aces, kings. So I opt for a raise to $100, and my opponent snap folds face up, showing king 10 offsuit. I don't typically do this, but I show my bluff to the table, hoping that he might cool it with his commentary. But spoiler alert, that didn't work. So on to the next hand. Exactly one orbit later, we're on the button and look down at king 6 of hearts. There was one limper, so we decide to raise to $12, and we get 4 callers. King 6 isn't the best hand in the world, but we get rewarded with a beautiful flop of 7-5-3 with 2 hearts. So we flop a flush draw, a gut shot straight draw, and a backdoor straight flush draw if we really want to be optimistic. The small blind player leads out for $25. The rest of the players in the hand fold, so now it's on me with an interesting decision. I could probably call here, but we're sitting at $338 effective, so we kind of want to start building the pot now, given that we have so many draws. I decided to raise to $75, knowing that if the small blind decided to rip it in, I would be happy to call. He decided on just a call of $75, and we see a turn of the 9 of clubs. So this card gives me even more outs now, as any 8 would give me a straight. The small blind checks to me, and I think checking or betting is fine here. I definitely want to see the river, and if I bet and he raises, I think I'd be in a pretty tough spot. But at the same time, our stack to pot ratio is looking pretty slim at a 1.25 to 1 ratio. So if I were to bet, I think my only option is to shove here. I decide on the former by just checking, and the river comes a 3 of spades. So we miss what feels like the entire deck and don't hit any of our draws or a king, which would also probably be good here. And now we're faced with another tough decision. I could check and give up, but I wasn't really in the giving up mood, so I decided on a bet of a little over half pot. I could have gone all in to polarize myself, but I think in this instance a half pot bet would look more like a value bet than anything. So I bet 125 into 210, and the small blind player doesn't snap call, which is great. So we're just hoping for a fold, and he ultimately decides on a call. So we tell him he's good, and he mercilessly shows the 7 of diamonds in front of the camera for a second pair. So really good call by the small blind. Definitely need to give him credit where credit is due. On to the next one. In the next hand, we look down at King Jack offsuit in middle position. There was one limper, and for those of you that might be new to poker, by limper I mean someone that just called the $3 big blind bet. You see this pretty often at lower stakes where people have the mindset of just wanting to see a cheap flop, but really what they're conveying to the whole table is that they don't really have a great hand, because in most cases they probably won't be limping with aces, kings, queens, etc. So we raise to $12 and we end up getting 3 callers. The flop comes 7 jack 10 rainbow. So we flop top pair, good kicker. And this is kind of a scary board considering that there are 3 other people in the hand, but I didn't want the action to check around, so I put in a bet of $30 into 51. I get only 1 call from the player in the small blind, and the turn comes the 5 of diamonds. I was pretty happy with this low card. None of the straight draws get there. Say if the small blind had pocket 8s or pocket 9s, maybe queen 9. The small blind checks to me, and if we look at the effective stack, we have $144 and the pot is $111. Again, I have a decision to make between checking and betting, and if I'm betting, I think the only option is to go all in to try and capitalize on a straight or flush draws that they might be chasing. So that's what I decide to do, and the small blind snap calls. Per the rules of filming at the Gardens Casino, I can't play any of the audio for you, but I have provided you with captions of what the armchair quarterback had to say about my play. The river comes the ace of diamonds, but that doesn't change anything as we lose to a flopped straight of 9-8 offsuit. Perhaps the turn shove wasn't the best play, but I'd like to hear your feedback in the comments below. So we reload for another $200, and at this point I think we're in the game for $500 or $600. There were a few smaller pots, like $50, $60, $70 pots that I lost, and each time I would reload so that I had the max possible stack of $200. So all of a sudden we're kind of in this game for 3 buy-ins basically, which kind of happened out of nowhere. In this next hand, we look down at 10-9 of clubs in middle position. We open the action to $10 and we get 3 callers. So we go to a flop 4 ways, and the flop comes king, king, 9, rainbow. I'm pretty sure I should be continuation betting every time here. So that's what I do, is I bet out for $15. Only the armchair quarterback on the button calls, and by this time in the game, I've only really seen him show down winning hands. So my alarm bells start to go off a little bit. The turn comes the 10 of spades, which gives me 3 pair, but unfortunately that's not a legitimate poker hand because that involves 6 cards, not 5. So this time I slow down by checking, and the button puts in a bet of 25 into 70. I'm still worried that he might have a king, but in the off chance that he is betting like this with a 9, then now I'm ahead. So I make the call, The river comes an inconsequential 3 of diamonds. I check, and the button decides on a roughly half pot bet of $65. I snap call, knowing that I'm only bluff catching at this point, but I kind of made up my mind on the turn to call most river bets to see what he had. He ends up turning over king 8 offsuit, so we lose this one and reload for another 115. Now, I may not be an expert, but I do know that pocket aces is the best starting hand in poker, so let's see if we can turn our luck around here. We're in the cutoff, and the straddle is on this hand to $6. There are 2 callers, and we have pocket aces, so of course we're going to try and build the pot here. With 2 limpers in the hand, I decide to make the raise up to $30. There's a lot of dead money in the pot, and I didn't want to give a great price for someone with a weak holding to come along. To my surprise, the small blind puts in a cold 3-bet to $92. He put in 90, but he was in the small blind, so it was 90 on top of the $2 he already had out there. Everyone else folds, and now I have a decision between calling and raising, but I don't think it's much of a decision with only $170 in my stack. If I called, I would only have $80 behind, and the pot would be $180, so I would essentially be pot committed no matter what. So I decide to move all in for my remaining $170, and the small blind snap calls. The flop comes 9 for jack with 2 clubs. The turn comes the 4 of diamonds, and the river is the 9 of clubs. I was a little worried that he might have pocket jacks here, but I flip over my cards, and he tossed his cards into the muck. So finally turning this around in the right direction. After the pocket aces hand, we won a few more small pots around $40, $50, and $60. So we were on an upward trend, and then this hand was the last interesting hand of the night. We look down at Queen Jack offsuit in middle position and open the action to $10. The small blind, our nemesis this session, raises to $22, and we just make the call. The flop comes Jack 9 7 rainbow, and the small blind checks to me. With such a connected board, I think the right play is to actually put some more money in here to protect against draws, but I decided on a check and sort of under-rep my hand. The turn comes the 4 of diamonds, and the small blind checks to me for a second time. With the second check, I'm fairly confident that I have the best hand, so I decide to put some more money in by betting about half pot for $25. The small blind calls, and the river comes the ace of hearts. This is probably the last card I wanted to see come on the river. He could have easily been playing this way with a hand like ace x of diamonds, ace queen, ace king, ace 10. So when he leads out for $20, I'm definitely not happy. My first impression was that he was trying to get some value out of any curious pocket pair or any 9, 7, or 4, for example. So I actually contemplated folding here, but the price was too good to fold, so I put in the $20 and tell him to show me the ace, but he said he didn't have an ace. So I flip over my cards, and he flips over king, queen offsuit for a missed straight draw. I think he actually had the right idea with his bet on the river, as he probably would have gotten a fold out of me if he bet bigger, but thankfully he didn't, and we win this pot to end the night. So kind of a rough start to the beginning of this vlog, but we won a few good pots at the end, and I'll let my previous self close it out.
All right, so we just finished up a 2.5-hour session. Unfortunately, it did not go our way tonight. We bought in for 760, and we were out of the game for 561. So not a terrible result, and I'm actually not too upset with the way I played, given the way the hands went down. So yeah, I actually feel okay. And losing is part of the game. It happens. There are some bad beats, and we move on. All right, take care, everyone. Peace. All right, hey, everybody. I just wanted to leave you all with a few comments. The first is that I actually really like this 2-3 game at the Gardens Casino. I think having a shorter stack induced a lot of action, especially on the turn. At least it did for me. I was all in a few times, so I will definitely be back to this game in the near future. The second thing is that for those of you that are math nerds like me, I created a Google spreadsheet for you to copy and do some data analysis if you're interested in my progress. So I will update that spreadsheet for every session that I play for the vlog. And that is linked in the description below. Lastly, if you could please like and subscribe, it does help this channel grow. So with that, I'll leave you and take care. Peace.